guys! It's so good to be back in this spot filming another video. I went camping with friends. My husband and I went camping with some of our friends this weekend and it was so fun. It was so relaxing. Really, it was glamping because they had super nice bathrooms and showers and like a little area with fire pits, and they had a pool, so it was kind of like a camping resort, but we did have a camping spot and our friends had tents, so they slept in their tents. But this was my husband's first time ever camping, and I've really only ever gone camping with those friends or a couple other friends that have loved camping. So I live in Utah and have a lot of outdoorsy friends, but I've just never been the one to initiate the outdoor activities, but I'm always down for the ride and down to go. So I don't really have any of my own gear. So my husband and I, we bought a little air mattress for the back of our Jeep and we slept in the back of our Jeep, which I thought was really cozy, and he's taller than me, so I don't know if he thought it was as cozy. We had our dog in there too, so our dog was kind of sleeping curled up at the bottom of our feet. Oh, so adorable. She's over there laying by the door right now because we brought the bedding from our guest bedroom to put in the back of the car and we want to wash it, but we left it by the door. So she's taking a little nap. She's curled up in the bedding right now in the comforter and it's so adorable. But it was super fun, and our friends brought their dogs and it was a great time. But we went to Escalante in Utah, which if you haven't been, definitely recommend making that a destination on your list. So yeah, I just feel refreshed and renewed. I think it's important to get outside of your regular environment and do things that are kind of out of your routine to reset and kind of remind yourself what's important in life, and especially something like camping where you're outside and you're more connected to nature. I think it's a really great experience. So I'm really glad we got to do that. But I definitely feel excited to be back and playing with my makeup again, because obviously we were camping and I didn't wear much makeup. Today I actually wanted to do a little bit of a look with some of my products in my collection that I don't feel like get enough love. So some of the things that I've had for a while and I just maybe don't use as much as I should, but I still love them and I want to kind of revisit them. So I thought that's what I would do for the look. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about something that happened back in November that has been coming up a lot for me again recently. So I'll kind of go back and forth, how these videos go back and forth between the chats and the makeup. So I already did my skin prep, so I'm going to kind of just get into it with this makeup look. These clips, they don't really have much grip. They're so cute, but I don't know how people really make these things stay. So we shall see. My sister fixed my hair. She cut it into like more of a blunt bob and I love it, and she dyed it. So she did fix the little, I don't know if you haven't watched my past videos, I did cut my own hair and it was bad time. It was bad. It was not good. Okay, so first of all, I did the Road Glazing Milk and my Inky List Ceramide Plumping Moisturizer for my skin prep. And now I'm actually going to do a little bit of an underpainting moment. So I'm going to use my Milk Makeup Sculpt Stick in the shade Toasted. This is their lightest shade as kind of a contour. I used this so much for like any event makeup, and I'm just going to warm that up on the back of my hand before I go in with a brush, because this is a little more stiff of a formula, so I don't like going in straight on the face with that one. And I just like to kind of coat it on, and we're gonna go. So this thing that I was thinking about recently that kind of happened back in November, I'm being a little messier with it because I'm doing underpainting, so it doesn't really matter as much for it to be super cleaned up yet. So back in November, I had kind of been on this a little more linear of a path in that I was very focused on my career and advancing my career, but in a very stressful way. I really placed a lot of my value and my worth on what I was doing in my career, and I really stressed that I wasn't feeling like I was at the point I wanted to be at. And I thought about it all the time. I stressed about it all the time. And my husband was so sweet and patient with me. He really does challenge me in a very positive way, where he brings very gently into my attention things that he feels like are stressing me out. Like, he kind of brought to my attention that I was maybe just hyperfixating on the future, and there was always something that was stressing me out, when in reality my life wasn't really that stressful. He kind of brought to my attention, it seems like there's a lot of things that I'm stressing about when they're not really things that need my attention right now to stress about. I make things into problems when they don't need to be a problem. I decided to really start paying attention to when I started to get stressed out, just being cognizant of that. And that's kind of, I think sometimes people try to change their patterns too quickly, or they shame themselves. And change really happens in stages. And I think because I know the stages of change, I have a little more patience with myself in changing certain patterns and in kind of rewiring certain things in my brain, and knowing that it takes time to fully integrate those things into your behavior in your life. There's the pre-contemplation stage, which is maybe even before somebody is aware of something that they want to change. And then you move into the contemplation stage, where you become aware of this thing. You start to weigh the pros and cons of changing this behavior or keeping this behavior. So then you go into the preparation stage, which is where you start to actively prepare to make changes in your behavior. And then that's when you move into the action stage, which is where you take tangible steps to improve your behavior or your environment. And then the final stage of the stages of change is the maintenance stage, which is where you've made the change and you work to maintain your new behaviors. And then sometimes people talk about the termination stage, which is kind of where that change has been so integrated into your life and it's such a solid new behavior that you don't even really have to think about maintaining it anymore. So since I am familiar with the stages of change, I feel like I do tend to be a little more patient with myself when it comes to making changes and waiting for them to stick, and just kind of working on that day-to-day process of making a behavior stick, because it does take some time. And when you are wired so strongly to behave a certain way or think certain thoughts, you just do have to have patience with yourself. It just does take time, and it takes conscious action every single day. At the beginning, when I recognized that this was my pattern, I felt very out of sorts. I felt very untethered. Back in November, when I kind of recognized this was a change I wanted to make, I had really tied my worth to my accomplishments and accolades, and these labels that I put on myself, I had identified with so strongly that I really felt like I didn't know myself. When I stopped stressing about my accomplishments and what I was going to do next and what I could strive for in my career, I had to really take a look at, okay, without the labels, without the stress, without the striving for something new in my career, who am I? It honestly was a difficult process. I think that is the biggest word that comes to mind when I think about that time, is I just felt very untethered to anything. I didn't have really a lot to tie me down to reality, help me feel grounded, because I realized that maybe the wrong things before were the things that were keeping me feeling grounded. And I was feeling like I had an identity, but that identity was stressing me out so much. So it's been a slow process of change, but I do feel like, and I'm going to keep moving with this contour also as I speak, because we know I tend to get caught up in the yappity yap of it all. But that process of feeling untethered really had to happen, because I recognize that is a very important aspect of letting yourself grow and evolve, is not being tethered to your identity and those labels and the wrong things, honestly. And I don't like to use the words right or wrong, but I can't really think of another way to describe it, because I do feel like it's not the healthiest thing for your evolution to identify so strongly with labels and accomplishments, and it really doesn't do anything for you. I do really feel like I know myself on such a deeper level after I stopped over-identifying with things that weren't helping me evolve, the things that were actually keeping me stuck, even though in my narrow-minded view, they were the things that were moving me forward. I was accumulating knowledge in a way that was stressful. I have to accumulate this knowledge or I'm not going to have worth. It was all about worth. And I think that's the distinction that I feel like is important to make and important to recognize when something is not healthy for you is, are you tying your worth to it? If you're doing something and you're tying your worth to it, that's not a good thing, no matter what it is. No matter if it's your relationship, your job, your accomplishments, the knowledge you have, your appearance, like anything, if you're tying your worth to it, that's not a healthy thing for your evolution. But there's also no judgment because we all have to go through different processes to get where we need to be. So if you go through a period of time where you are really over identifying with those things, that also doesn't mean you're like wrong or bad. This definitely looks crazy. Just give me some time to like put it all together. Over-identifying with the wrong things sometimes is the only way that you learn to identify with the right things. I'm going to use my Fenty Beauty Soft Lit Naturally Luminous Longwear Foundation, and this is the shade 150. I love this stuff so much, but I think when I got my House Labs, I just sort of was really testing out the House Labs a lot, and I kind of just stopped giving this foundation as much love. And I'm going to take my It Cosmetics buffing brush. I've been loving this brush lately also. This has definitely been an underused brush in my collection till recently. I'm just going to warm it up on the back of my hand and kind of like stamp those places where I want covered around the spots where I'm going to get on my shirt, around the spots where I did the contour. So anyways, I feel like the biggest lesson for me was that anytime I catch myself over-identifying with something that is tied to my worth, I really have to take a step back. The way that I describe that time is you have to break before you can bloom. And I truly feel like you have to go through that period of time of feeling untethered, of feeling unsure, to know what the right next step is. The only thing that I need to tether me is this moment, is knowing in this moment that I have the power of choice. In every moment I have the power of choice. No label is really going to be a true reflection of who we are as a person, as a soul. And that's something I've really been leaning into this year. I've talked so much about kind of the way this year has been transformative for me in past videos, and I feel like the biggest thing is I just don't feel like I identify with any label anymore. If a label feels fun to try on for the moment, if a label gives me joy but it's not tied to my worth, then that's a different thing. But I think that's very different than feeling like you need those labels in order to have an identity or in order to know who you are, because that's just not true for any of us. Little thoughts of the day from Brielle. And see, look how pretty that foundation is. Also, I'm filming with my husband's camera today instead of my phone. I've been filming with my phone in the past, and the camera, I feel like it does. I'm feeling sassy. I'm feeling good with this camera, so this might be a regular occurrence to film with the camera. But I just absolutely love this foundation. I'm gonna try to get up close and show you. It's like so glowy, but it's glowy in like the most natural, beautiful way. Damn, that foundation's good. I think sometimes when something is so good, this is gonna be a weird way to describe this, but sometimes for me, if a foundation is so perfectly skin-like, sometimes I like underestimate how good it really looks because I'm like, oh, it just looks like my skin. But then I take my makeup off and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that made a huge difference. It's like sometimes hard to tell in the moment how much of a difference it's making until you take it off and then you're like, wait, that made a huge difference. Now let us move into blush. I have 2 of these big sizes of Happy, and I just sometimes forget about them. I'm trying to use up the products that I have and not over-consume. So I want to show some love to the OGs and really work that into the cheeks. This really is such a pretty, like, just a pretty springy pink color. My nose did get a little burnt this weekend, so it's a little crispy. And I reapplied sunscreen a lot, but I'm so fair. Sometimes the sun makes its way through that sunscreen. Now I'm gonna go in with concealer, and this is definitely, I definitely use this concealer. I only have 2 concealers, so there's not really a concealer in my collection that I don't use enough, I feel like. I just love this concealer, but I did kind of forget about this concealer for a while when I was using Tower 28, and I just rebought this, so I think it counts for this category as not getting enough love, because there was a period of time where I did not give it enough love. I used this concealer as my foundation. Oh yeah, that concealer is so hydrating, and I don't know how I forgot about that little aspect, but it's so good. I used this concealer as my foundation this weekend when we went to dinner while we were camping, and I was loving the way it looked. I'm like, I should use this as my foundation more often. So I think I'm gonna film an updated kind of everyday makeup routine that's super minimal, and I'm gonna use that as my little foundation. I also forgot to do my brows, and my brow product that's definitely underrated in my collection is the Benefit Gimme Brow like tinted gel, and I just forget I have this. I use the Rare Beauty all the time, and I love the Rare Beauty, and this one's tinted, that one is not. But I just use my pencil. This really does give your eyebrows like some good color and definition. Yeah. I think sometimes the way that color deposits is a tiny bit unpredictable, which is why it's not my most used, but if I'm like in a super hurry, I don't gravitate towards it, but if you're careful, it really does apply beautifully, and it makes the brows look very full and fluffy. Okay, next let's move on to some powder products. So this is the setting powder that I forget about. It's the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Brightening Flawless Finish. This is, I know, a holy grail for a lot of people, the Charlotte Tilbury powders. So I'm just gonna lightly set the T-zone. I think that base is looking pretty good. What do you guys think? I do like that blush color a lot more than I remember. Okay, next we're gonna go in with the powder bronzer. This is the Jane Iredale powder bronzer, and this is one I definitely forget about, but it is really good. It's like a really soft, pretty bronze. So I'm just gonna kind of set, but I definitely think it's very like subtle and pretty. And it has kind of like a glow in the pan. I don't know if you can see that, but it doesn't do that on the face. It's like very soft focus. This House Labs Bio Radiant Gel Powder Highlighter in Rose Quartz. This is technically a highlighter, but I use that as a blush topper because I am so fair. I think for deeper skin tones, it would be more of like a highlight. And it really does add the prettiest like glow to the skin. I would definitely wear this makeup to like an event. I feel like this base is really giving me like fancy vibes. I'm gonna slap on a little bit more of my lip prep because my lips are so dry. They definitely got sunburnt this weekend. And I'm using the Naturium Phyto Glow Lip Balm in Camellia. It's really pretty pink. It actually goes very well with the cheek combo. Next, we're gonna go in and do the eyes, and we're just gonna go super simple. We're gonna use the Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize in Champagne. And since I got my like K-Beauty palettes, I have a few of these pots, and I honestly just have not given them enough love recently. I'm gonna go in with a brush, and I do tend to use my fingers a lot more often for these, but I'm just gonna kind of do a nice little one and done sweep. Oh, that's so much prettier than I remember. So I think basically all we have left is like eyelashes and lips. I'm actually gonna use this. The Tower 28 one-liner in the shade Draw Me is, I think, a very good like subtle liner color for me. And I do it very messily because I am gonna go in with my nail and just kind of try to make that wing a little bit sharper. And I'm gonna use the Sephora Collection Soft Suede. And this one, I think, just got lost in the collection when I got my Jones Road one. And you know what? I'm use more of this as the topper to that. Hey guys, my camera died, so we're back to the phone camera just for this literal last 1 minute, and I know you can hear the air conditioning, so this last minute we're gonna power through. It's gonna be a rough minute really quick. I'm gonna use my little YSL Lash Clash because I never use this guy. And I just think we need to be there for each other as humans on this planet. So if you need someone to talk to, I got you. That is like my whole intention in starting this channel, is to first of all, yes, have fun with beauty, have life chats, but also like sometimes we just need people. We need people to bounce things off of, and sometimes it is harder to talk to people in your circle where you don't know who to talk to because it's just hard to navigate that. So if you need to talk, if you want to chat, hop on in those comments or DM me on Instagram. I'm back on Instagram now. And we're gonna take out the clips now. And that is the look. So thank you for bearing with me in this last little moment through the camera struggles and for hanging out with me. And I hope you guys have a beautiful day.